I became successful pretty early, and I realized there's no skipping the steps. There's no skipping the lessons. There's no skipping the deals gone wrong. There's no skipping. There's just the initiations. And if it doesn't work out, like, I'm really starting to connect to like it was never meant to be, because I can't really fail at the thing I'm here to do.
Hi, this is JP Newman on Investing on Purpose, and today I have Raj Jana with us. Raj is a dear friend of mine who's also the co-founder of a company called Liberate that's literally going to change disease and your ability to heal much, much faster. I can't wait for him to dig into and share that with you. But most importantly, I know a lot of times on our shows we're talking about how purpose-driven businesses create outsized returns. But part of having a purpose-driven business is the ability to deeply feel into the mission and the vision. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to have that sustainable purpose-driven business. Raj, out of anyone I know, is one of the masters at truly, how do you embody getting into your feelings? What are the skills you need? What are the thoughts? And he's going to help you with how he does it in his process, and also give you his website and literally how you can go, whether you feel, sometimes you feel numb or you feel stuck, or let's say you feel great, but you want to feel more. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode as a way to see how you can go deeper into your feelings and how being deeper and more embodied in your feelings will create that wonderful purpose-driven business. Enjoy the episode. Hi, this is JP Newman on Investing on Purpose, and today I have a dear friend, Jedi, amazing human being, Raj Jana, is with us today. Raj, it's rare to get you in Austin and do this together. I've been wanting to do this with you for about 2 years now, so I am just so grateful that you're here. And on today's episode, Raj is one of my very dear friends, and we've done a lot of deep work together, and it's really interesting to see how Raj has really evolved. And when we talk about, investing on purpose, investing with purpose, sustainability, consciousness, all these things we talk about to create outsized returns, I just love your story, Raj, of how you went from basically from college to a engineer on oil shells, drinking every night, to working for a major oil company, and then literally coming into your own of like, which is, by the way, is perfectly fine, smart, ambitious guy, but how you've taken that journey, which could have actually just led you to a very comfortable life. You could just live in the suburbs and make a great living, and just, you were on an amazing actually career track. And yet there was something inside you that said, I want more. There was something that kept you going. And it's amazing where it's taken you through your own company of JavaPresse, which has become an incredibly successful Presse coffee. I know it's even more a coffee aficionado kind of company, a cult, a place to be. And then, of course, now you've been taking that, and now you're going to the next step as you evolve in your own feelings with Liberate, which is literally helping people of all kinds of medical diseases and things like that literally heal through multiple modalities, through both mind, heart, and medicine all together as one, which is kind of like revolutionary in itself. And how does a guy who's working in Louisiana for an oil company go from that to the idea of literally changing suffering and bringing healing to millions?
I mean, when you paint the endpoints like that, it's kind of hard to like I can see, I could see many choice points along the way that opened up more and more layers to me really stepping into what's my purpose, right? And really stepping into what am I here to do? But if I look at where I was in my life when I first started, as an engineer, it was pain. The thing that pushed me into entrepreneurship was feeling like I didn't have any control over my time. I hated being in a cubicle. I was in a long distance relationship at the time, and because I was in oil and gas, I was limited to where I could be. So the pain of not having freedom inspired. And then,
so even though you knew, that's a pretty impressive job to have. You're fresh out of college. It's a very impressive gig. I'm sure you're being paid quite well for someone who had recently had graduated from college. So even with all that, it wasn't enough.
Well, I'll tell you this, there's something from me. I think I just felt this lack of fulfillment. And I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And once I read The 4-Hour Workweek, I just saw a whole new life, a whole new possibility that was outside of the paradigm of what I had been told by my family, or what I'd been told by school, or what I was seeing around me. And it excited me. And so when I just started going down that path, then I had another choice point.
So that first choice point was maybe I could have financial success and time, and therefore freedom. Was that the first choice point?
That was the first choice point. The second choice point was when 3 months after I launched my first side hustle, which ended up turning into my main hustle, JavaPresse, the coffee company, I had a mentor who worked 37 years at the same company die of a heart attack 3 months before his retirement date.
Wow.
And he was my cubicle mate. And I remembered that moment very vividly because the next week, his wife came in who had just retired to clean out his cubicle. And she was literally learning things about her late husband as she was cleaning out his cubicle. And the one message she left behind was, do not wait. And I remembered literally sitting in that moment, just thinking about my father, who came to the U.S. with nothing in his pocket and has been working his entire life for the promise of retirement. And the idea of something like that happening to him was like, nah, I don't want that. I don't want that for myself. And then that was then the next thing that drove me into incredible success. 7 months later, we hit our first $1 million in sales at the coffee company. I was still working full time.
Wow.
But I was just running. So there was this thing I was running from. Third choice point. I met one of my first mentors, Yannick Silver, who wrote a book called Evolved Enterprise. And the entire book was about combining the thing you're here to do with your business instead of it being like separate, like combining impact and business to make more money, or very much in alignment with your message.
Yeah.
And I remember reading.
That's a really big deal, by the way. When Yannick came out with that book, which was an incredible book, it's still like this idea. It seemed like there's been this idea. I know it's changing over time, but this idea that you have to choose either make money or have impact, but you can't do both. It's like they're diametrically opposed. I know Yannick's book coming out and Yannick's work, and I know he's with the Mavericks and everything that he's done. And he's really been a big push to really kind of reinforce the point of doing good and doing well are synonymous.
I still remember, I read his book, and then after that is when I kind of came back to my coffee company, and I was like, how do I turn this thing that's just selling something that anyone can sell into something that's making a difference? And I went back and I went through exercises and a lot of contemplation and thinking. And that's where Stay Grounded came from, my podcast. Like it started out as a tagline for my coffee company, where I wanted to just share the message of don't wait until tomorrow, be present today, and do it over a cup of coffee, and use coffee as a vehicle to create more ritual, meaning, and joy in your life. And that was the message. And then I was like, okay, let me start sharing this message through our platforms, through our customers, through our brand experience, through everything we did. And that's where the podcast launched, and I started doing that. And weirdly, after I started doing that, we grew 800%.
Wow.
I ended up winning the Inc. 5000 that year for the year that I went from being just a company that sold coffee grinders, or a company that just sold equipment, or a company that was just competing on price, to a company that was informing a really important message that I believed in, and something that was really helping people connect to something deeper within themselves. And the consciousness of that was getting me press. The consciousness of that was getting me partnerships. The consciousness of that was improving lifetime values. The consciousness of that was creating a more fulfilling experience for my employees. It was creating more meaning for me. I was working harder, even though I didn't feel like I needed to.
I get that. I totally get that. So what was for JavaPresse? What was the vision and the mission, really? Which still is. Like, what was the energy or the feel that made you? Because like you said, there's coffee everywhere. Coffee is a total commodity. Yeah. It's a very common product. It doesn't make sense that you grew 800% without some kind of feel or vision or mission that your customers could actually feel. What was the mission, and then how did you convey it to your customers?
The mission was to help you stay grounded.
I should say.
Stay grounded in the moments you love using a cup of coffee. We wanted to transform your ordinary coffee ritual into an extraordinary daily experience.
And how would you do that? Is it through the quality of the coffee? Is it just being mindful? Is it just
our flagship product at the time was a manual coffee grinder.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of put a spin on, pun intended, slowing down to drink coffee. Instead of going fast, go slow.
I love that.
And
that's great.
So we created a lifestyle around being slow with your coffee and all the things you could do in that slowness to connect with your family. So we started encouraging customers to share how they were staying grounded. And we started really building this lifestyle and this culture around staying grounded. And then I had my podcast, and I would talk about staying grounded on the podcast, and I had an email newsletter. And so it really just kind of brought into the lifestyle of staying grounded and what that means. and being able to convey that consistently across the board so that it's not just like, and to me, it was living it, right? Like it's not just a marketing campaign. It was actually
if the
something.
founder's not living it, then it just
I was living it.
It feels like a marketing campaign.
And if I think about my unique zone of genius, right? Like it is being kind of like the front and center star. Like I'm not somebody who's going to go sit on the spreadsheets. I'm not somebody who's going to go like, I have team members, I have partners for that. Where I shine is out front. And so playing to my strengths also, like I went and got crazy levels of press. I got on all these different media outlets. I was really speaking this message. And because I knew how to speak it, I could touch people's hearts. And so I think there's a combination of like having the mission, but then also knowing your skills and knowing how you shine and doubling down on your strengths and leveraging that to grow. And so it was a combination of a lot of things, but I really feel like, we did a lot of good with the company, and I'm not as active in the company anymore, but it was a really powerful reframe because it was the first time that I got to see the impact of selling with purpose instead of just selling a product. It was selling a mission, not even selling. Like we did a lot of charity with the company too. Like we donated to Make-A-Wish, like all the farmers we sourced from were impact farmers, and we did actual good.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that really, the energetics of the company, the consciousness of the company was sort of held around this mission. And I really feel like companies have souls.
I definitely think companies have souls.
Companies have
until
souls.
they get bought out by a private equity firm, and then they become soulless. And I think I was just listening to the failure rate. Once a company buys you, like the failure rate's like 70%. And I really think a lot of times is because the soul goes away. When it becomes just about maximizing profit, the soul goes away.
There's a lack of understanding on the energetics of I think companies in business. I really do feel like there just hasn't been a great, and no one really knows at the end of the day. Like we're all kind of figuring this out on the fly. Yeah. I think there are some Jedis that have amassed incredible success, you being one of them, that can maybe speak to the energetics of making decisions. But I really do believe that there's a consciousness that you're working with when you're creating. And if you can connect to the hearts of every single human, and at the end of the day, it's like connecting to the hearts of every single human being you're trying to touch. If you really speak to that and you actually try to elevate all the hearts, if you literally create win-win-win-win-win situations, if you're constantly looking for ways to do that, you're going to win. It's just, it doesn't make sense not to. And so
what's cool though, Raj, and I've even seen it with your growth and even with mine, sometimes it just starts with a simple gesture. Like if some people in the audience are thinking like, that's great that Raj had all this in him and he figured it out. I know I did not at all. And this has been like literally a slow evolution, one step at a time of like, maybe I could do this. Like, I remember, Raj, actually, when I met you, this was at Baby Bathwater in Croatia. We were on the Croatia. I met you 3 weeks after my Croatia trip, but I spoke for the first time about my nonprofit. And I remember I was speaking to it's like a business mastermind. And at the moment, at the end of that presentation, I cried. And I was almost embarrassed that I cried because this was like a business mastermind. But I cried because part of me was like, my presentation was so good of what I really aspired to be, but part of me wasn't quite there yet in my own development. So I think the tears were like my own personal commitment. It had nothing to do with the audience. It was like, I am going to be this. Like, I can't just say this. I want to be this. And I knew I wasn't quite there in spirit yet. And I know when you're talking as a fellow entrepreneur, like you're like, there's a congruence that your mind, body, and spirit and your vision were congruent, but I just didn't want to say to the audience that for me took a long time, and it was little steps at a time that got, and a will that got me there.
I kind of want to just speak to this. So for me, have you read a book called Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold?
I've just finished my Vivid Vision.
So, I wrote my first Vivid Vision for JavaPresse before JavaPresse had all that.
Yeah.
And I think there's the seed of inspiration that happens, and then there's the actualization of it. And I wrote my second Vivid Vision in June of 2020, and it was about what I actually wanted to be doing in the world, which was building companies that disrupted root causes instead of just something that dealt with the symptoms of a broken society. And I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what that was going to turn into. I had no idea. I just had this vivid, and I put it on paper. I thought it was going to be a fund. I thought it was going to be an incubator.
Yeah.
I had all these like ideas and thoughts.
Well, and you experimented with
I
it.
think I remember even talking about it. Like,
Well,
it was like,
we did.
and
Yeah,
I actually went down that path.
You
of
did.
like
You got some
picking
loans
up.
going.
I
You
got
had a fund going.
Had a fund. Had loans. I was picking up brands. I was doing all this stuff.
You were.
And then the evolution of that to liberate, like to even think about like that vivid vision that I wrote, I thought it meant one thing. And then through my own unraveling, through my own breaking open, through my own mistakes, through my own failures, through my own judgment lapses, like it led me down this crazy meandering path to arrive at the company that is working on the root cause that I believe is contributing to every single problem in society. So like, I couldn't have calculated that. So there's a brilliance to having the vision and speaking it. And even if you run in a direction that isn't really where it's supposed to be, in the process of creating comes the unveiling. It's like you become the person who is fit to lead the vision as you just move and create, and you have your initiations and you jump through your challenges and you go through your failures, and all of it is shaping you into the thing you're actually here to do.
Yeah, Raj, I remember you and I were having dinner at Barton Creek at the country club, and you said to me, you looked at me and you're like, JP, I'm really in a conundrum because I'm about to make so much money in this current business, but my soul is telling me not to do this. My soul is telling me I need to rest and regroup. But I feel compelled to be here. Like, I don't want to disappoint this person who's leading me to the money. Like, I don't want him to feel like you had all these considerations about abandon. Like, you don't want to abandon this guy because he's been so good to you. And you guys had like this big thing coming in. And like your soul was so clear that it wanted to rest because it wanted to regroup for something else. But you were so torn into the world at the time. And I didn't have a great answer for you. I was just your friend listening to you. And you and I both know the details of how that worked out. But ultimately, it's kind of funny that, and it's a good lesson in life because what seems so sure in life at that time of like, I always say that all that glitters is not gold. You know, sometimes we think that this is the sure path, or we can't let this person down, or we need to keep this client happy, but we kind of know like we're being pulled in another direction, but we're really trying hard to keep the ship together, even though we kind of know that our energy, our interest is wavering, but we're trying so hard because maybe that wisdom knows you need to do something else, but our brains are just going to like keep our shit together.
I mean, I really feel like the path from the head to the heart is the longest one a man will make. And I feel like surrender is the only way to get there. Right?
But I love that we've been through that journey together and some of those trials and tribulations. And by the way, I mean, I didn't have any advice. I was just listening to you like empathetically as your friend.
Well, in hindsight, if I can go back and look at that kid and just, I still remember 2 months after that conversation, I did fall to the brink of surrender. Almost every deal I had fell through.
I did.
All at once. And it just all... like the things that I thought were so sure all just fell through.
They did. I mean, they
and I had an ego death. It was like there was a part of me that died.
Yes.
And what's so fascinating about that is I think.
By the way, it also, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. Like it died with drama. Like nothing that you and I could have predicted. Like it could have been the Star Spangled Banner with the flames that we never could have predicted because you had everything done right. It just blew up. There was such a lesson. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. But that's the brilliance of it, right? Like you can't comprehend. Like if you look at COVID, could anyone have predicted the chaos of COVID? No. Like I remember January of 2020, I was getting ready for this big year. I had my goals. I was setting ready. I was like, and then March, like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You know, the craziness. And I think there's an acknowledgement for me as an entrepreneur as I've become more of, I would say, you know, a creator in acknowledging these cycles and really acknowledging like there are seasons to life. And I think for me, I became successful pretty early, and I realized there's no skipping the steps. There's no skipping the lessons. There's no skipping the deals gone wrong. There's no skipping. There's just the initiations. And if it doesn't work out, like I'm really starting to connect to like it was never meant to be, because I can't really fail at the thing I'm here to do. You can't. Yeah. Like, you actually can't.
You can't.
Because the thing you're here to do is supported by everything around you. It's supported by the universe. Like, and I think taking the time to really be present inside of those moments of confusion, inside of those moments where you're like, where the hell am I going? And being present. I still remember like when all those deals went wrong and I kind of walked away from a lot of money, from partnerships. And I told myself this vision that I wrote in 2020, I was like, I'm afraid. I was with a mentor in Salt Lake City. I'll never forget this. I remember like stepping away, and this mentor had, built a very successful investment firm, 3,000 employees. And I was literally talking to him, and I was like, Paul, like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm really scared to go all in on this vision. I'm really afraid. And he was like, Raj, if you believe in this with everything in you, just keep taking one step at a time and let things figure themselves out. I remember it's such a cliche piece of advice.
Totally.
Nothing tactical in that. No tactical. But for some reason, hearing that from him, who was so successful, somebody who was a visionary, for me to hear that from him, I remembered, in the next months, like I just paid attention to what was showing up, and I added as much value to the people's lives that I could. And that then led to partnerships with Mike, then led to who's now my business partner in Liberate and Humans Are Good, which is our foundation. And like, it opened up doors that I couldn't have opened up. And I think there's something, now I look back and I'm like, I'm living my vision. That vision that I wrote, I'm living it. And I am now the leader fit to lead it as a result of all the challenges that I've had in my life. Like it's even fascinating. Like, when I think about like lessons, and, I'm a big, and we've raised capital for Liberate and done all the things. And one of the things that I've really learned is like, when I speak to our investors, it's like, I want them to know the story of Raj. I want them to know the mistakes. I want them to, we were just talking about this, like, I want them to know.
I know. I do a lot of the same things. Like,
like, I want you to know that like, hey, like this guy you're investing in is a guy who's made mistakes. The guy you're investing.
Would you share the story? I know at dinner you were telling me the story. Like, there was a moment where like, with one of your investors, you were kind of afraid to tell them about a mess you were in, and because you didn't want him to lose confidence in you and his a current investment. Do you mind sharing that story? Because I think it says a lot about you, that it's not just intent, it's also vulnerability, and it's also, it takes courage. It's in that vulnerability is courage. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, there was, I was having a conversation with one of our investors, and I was going to make a decision at a company that I had equity in that would have had negative implications or potential negative implications on my reputation as a creator. It was a decision that I made a long time ago, and I was afraid because I didn't want him to lose confidence in me. I didn't want him to...
He was an important investor to you.
He was an important investor to me, and...
Really believed in you, came in early on your current company.
Yeah, and I remember terrified to call him, but I just knew that I had to. And I remembered calling the investor, and I just told him, hey man, like, this is what I'm navigating right now. This is what, I'm working through. I've got this company. And just to give you guys context, like, I've been cleaning up the messes of the deals that went wrong for 3 years. And I hadn't talked to really about any of my investors about any of these deals because I didn't want them to feel stressed, because everything we're doing at Liberate's different. I didn't want them to know about any of that because it didn't matter.
It's a past company.
It's a past company. It's not. And when I went to this investor, and I was like, hey man, I just need to let you know that like, this is what I'm navigating. This is like where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. And I'm contemplating these decisions that may have a negative impact on
your reputation,
on my reputation. And if we do go to raise bigger capital, it may impact. And I remember the investor looking and be like, holy crap, Raj, like, you've built and brought this much traction to Liberate, even with all of that
in the background.
And he looked at me and he was like, dude, I'm not investing in you because of that. Like, that's why I'm investing in you, because you commit your heart, you care. And it was the first time I had this, and then I got more confident. I talked to other investors and they're like, Raj, yeah, like, you couldn't even be building the product you're building at Liberate without having those challenges. And it was the first time I got this like, wow, like, you know, character is a big thing. Like we all make mistakes. We all have our lessons and we all go through life scathed. Like no one goes through life unscathed.
If it's unscathed, it's probably a Ponzi scheme.
Right. And
Bernie Madoff did it for 33 years.
yeah. And you know, like I just got to a point of true gratitude for the trust, and it makes me want to work harder.
But it's interesting that the investor, sharing a vulnerability that make you look less than perfect, and it could really do a chink. You having the courage to clear that actually gave him more confidence in you, which would have never expected. I think that's wild.
It's one of those things you just don't learn until you get into it. You know, the thing you're most afraid of is actually the pathway to liberation, and like really feeling it.
Wait, let's slow that down. The pathway of what you're most afraid of is what leads you to liberation. I was just thinking about your product, Liberate, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Like, think about that statement.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with people who are dealing with certain kinds of disease.
Yeah.
And your premise is that by helping them through AI and other methods, by helping them get clear on what belief systems are inciting them and clearing those beliefs will help towards their healing or their liberation. So you kind of just said exactly what you said in your sentences. Exactly.
I mean,
that's the premise of your company, Raj.
Coming back to, I couldn't be building what I'm building without going through the challenges and living it, right? Like I'm living this message that, hey, when we don't allow fear of feeling, when we don't allow fear of having a hard conversation, when we don't allow fear of having our reputations tarnished, stop us from doing what's right, stop us from doing what's best for us, stop us from doing what's best for the situation or our communities, like infinite possibilities exist. And I really do feel that, like everything in my life has been on the other side of feeling the fear or being on the other side of fear. And it's been my North Star. The thing I'm most afraid of is like, and the more I keep following that thread, the better my life gets.
Raj, I want to ask you a question because actually out of anyone I know, I've told you this before, this compliment, your ability to feel your feelings is really, and you're exponentially growing that, but it's like, you know, you beam, you transmit love. And I can tell you from someone I was stuck in my head for years of really thinking and not really being able to feel. And I would guess there's a lot of people in the audience that are great thinkers, super smart. And again, we have a society that keeps it keeps data dumping on us. The news, it data dumps Instagram, it's data dumping on us. And I just know so many people, including my own journey, where it was very, very hard to kind of drop into my feelings. If you could give anyone advice who said, I'm struggling to really feel those feelings, what would be a first step that you'd recommend for someone just to begin the process of being able to feel and getting to that point of realization or feeling?
I mean, I'm building a company that helps people do that. So you can go to liberate.health and check out any of that stuff. That's one thing we teach.
So is that a resource for people? If someone feels I'm stuck in my head, I really want to be able to feel more, whatever this Raj is saying, I want to know more about that.
Well, if you're having emotions, if you're having negative thought loops, if you're having behaviors, if fear is running your life, you know, Liberate is a tool that can help you get to the root of where that fear is coming from and then pair you up with tools to get rid of it for good.
Which is what the AI does. So you take a survey, essentially. You're taking a survey.
We have an app and a program that allows you to basically do an assessment and we don't like to use the word diagnostic, but like at the end of the day, like it's like an emotional lab report.
It'll help guide you.
We run emotional lab reports. So that's like basically the product.
Yeah.
So you can run an emotional lab report on your...
Is that free on your website?
It's $137 on the website.
That's cheap. $137.
Yeah. So I mean, and you get a 90-minute consultation. Like it's cheap. It's meant to actually meet people that can't afford therapy. So we've kept the cost low for that reason. And so it's meant to be super affordable. It's super dialed in. It's very impactful.
Amazing.
I run emotional lab reports on myself once a quarter at the very least.
I'm going to do one.
Yeah.
I want to run an emotional lab. You know, also, Raj, you said something that from my experience, sometimes it's fear. People feel fear as a way of feeling like I can't feel because I'm too afraid to feel. The other thing is that I find, quite frankly, is numbness. And I know for me, it really wasn't, it felt like fear. And a lot of times I felt numb. And even now it's like my little, if I'm ever feeling numb, it's kind of a reminder of how to get back to my heart. But I found that I've had to tell a lot of people, you know, I've been mentoring a lot of people that sometimes when you're feeling numb or fearful, you don't even realize that you have the ability to feel because you're so far away from those feelings because your brain is doing its job. your brain is trying to keep you safe. But if you let your brain and ego be your amigo, which I love that saying that I recently was told, I think it's really important to understand that you're not broken. Yeah. I think I felt broken for a long time, like because I was numb. I was so in my head and I couldn't feel. I felt broken. And I didn't really know as a human being that I even knew how to feel really. And I've had a lot of people who I've mentored have had the same experience. So it feels so far away what you're saying that it's hard for them to really connect to that. And so I would just say that, and this is really kind of goes along the line of liberate, that if you are feeling numb or not sure, it's simply your brain doing its job. It's blocking some memories or blocking some flow of something, because our natural beings is to feel, is to flow with energy. I love the idea that emotions are energy in motion.
Totally, yeah.
Right? So if your energy is not in motion, if your emotions are being numbed out or fearful, then your energy is not in motion. Your energy is stuck in your body. And so having modalities to know that, first of all, know that this is every God-given human being's ability as humans to feel. I always say sometimes to my 17-year-old son, if he's not sure what he's feeling, I'm like, you saw that pretty girl over there. Was your heart going fast? Was your heart starting to beat when you saw that girl? You're like, yeah, Dad, yeah, you're feeling. You're not, like we all feel. We all basically feel. And there's wonderful skills. And I know that that's really your passion, Raj, and not only for your own journey, but for your journeys to others, to go deeper into their feelings so that they can live. They can be liberated, literally liberated from their illness. Isn't that right?
It's illness. It's from relationship challenges. It's from a lack of connection to your work. Whatever your symptom is, at the end of the day, you have tools. There are tools out there that you can leverage to liberate yourself from the programs, from the unconscious sort of saboteurs, if you want to call them that. There are sabotaging factors in your unconscious mind that are leading you to making certain choices that are then leading to the onset of disease, to the challenges in relationship. And my philosophy is that,
so you're making a connection that those numb areas, those areas that you're not feeling, can actually create disease in the body.
From the research we've done and the studies we are currently doing and the patients we're seeing, what we know is that stress leads to illness. Stress leads to a weakened immune system, and a weakened immune system leads the body to be susceptible to disease. Now, where specific illnesses localize in the body, there's a lot of different theories and a lot of different, there's like Eastern medicine has entire frameworks on how to diagnose the body as it pertains to illness and disease and emotion. We're doing a lot of research on that right now, so we can't definitively say, but there are over 4,000 studies that link emotional well-being to improved health outcomes. So we do know that the power of prayer, the power of reducing stress leads to healthier bodies. And that's ultimately what we are speaking to. But I also believe that it's not just about health. It's also about your relationships. Like, let's be real. Like, when you have a relationship fear, or when you have an attachment, or when you have some type of resentment, or when you have this constant loop of sabotage, by learning to understand where that's coming from and then resolve it, you're actually giving yourself an opportunity to have a more loving, connected relationship. Right? Same thing with your work. If there's a part of you that's getting burned out because you're doing things you don't love, well, paying attention to that burnout, paying attention to the stress, and getting to the root of why you feel like you have to push yourself so hard, why you feel like you have to keep saying yes to other people. Where are all these people-pleasing tendencies coming from? Like, all of these are just behaviors that are leading to outcomes we don't want. And so when we can take the time to actually understand what is causing, what are the root core beliefs, what are the root emotions, what are the root traumas maybe, what are the roots that we can't see readily contributing to the challenges I'm experiencing today, and how can I actually begin to resolve that so that I can create lasting shifts in my mental and emotional well-being. And when you're happier, less stressed, you are just a naturally more impactful human being. You become the ripple in the world. The way you work changes, the way you invest changes, the way you speak to people changes, your mission evolves. That's ultimately what I believe. I really believe that, creating the change you want in the world begins by being the change you wish to see. And so when we can change ourselves, we naturally become human beings that can change the world.
So Raj, let me ask, if you were to give, we're going to wrap this up, but I want to ask you two questions. One, what resources, if someone's listening to you and saying, I love what Raj is saying, and by you, Raj, you are, sometimes like when you're a pro tennis player, you kind of forget that you're a pro tennis player. So if you wanted to break this down for people who are just saying, like, I'm feeling a little stuck, or I'm doing fine, but I want to go deeper in this work. Are there any resources? Are there websites? Are there books? Are there podcasts or things that you think is a wonderful resource to help you go deeper into your emotions so you can kind of break through those beliefs and feelings?
I mean, there's plenty. I mean, I really
just you have a couple that maybe would be your favorite that you can recommend?
I'd have to. It'd be hard not to give Liberate a plug.
Okay, well, give Liberate a plug.
Liberate.health, Liber8.health. We've literally taken thousands of hours worth of study, gotten vetted by some of the most promising names in psychology, psychiatry, mental health, and taken all of our own collective efforts and all the books we've read and turned it into a simple process.
Yeah.
To help you make sense of your emotions and pair you up with therapies that are unique for your situation. So we literally take a data-driven, science-backed approach to mental and emotional well-being for $137, one-time fee, nothing else. It's literally like I cannot give you a therapy that is cheaper than that. I cannot give you, like literally that's the cost of 10 books. So I could recommend a book, but we also distilled all the things we've learned from all the books we've read into that. So,
well, I can tell you, Raj, truly, and I'm fortunate. I realize that I really only, my producer Alex wants me to make more episodes. He says I'm too slow at my production of episodes, but I really wait to find people and a lot of my close friends just in this community and amazing human beings out there. And you really are. I've met, like you, I just know so many people. But you really have mastered this. So I think taking it from you, it really means something. You are the pro Jedi of emotions. I learn from you still. And no matter where you're at, there's always more. There's always deeper you can go. There's so many layers to this onion. It gets really fun. I was wrapping up, one of the things that I just learned recently, it sounds so silly, but the word inhalation, the word inspiration is to inspire, which is to breathe in. So when you're breathing in, like taking a deep breath, which is what I'm learning to do, because I tend to go fast, to slow myself down to get more mindful in my body is basically inspiration. You inspire, which is to breathe in. And when you breathe in, you're in spirit. Inspire is Latin for in spirit. So literally breathing in is inspiring. It's inspiration to be in spirit, to get back into my body. So one of my tricks for a person who's got a fast mind and is a hyper processor is to breathe in and to actually check in and ask myself a simple question. The check-in is, am I safe? And how am I feeling? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Am I fearful? Am I happy? And just actually simply sometimes the recognition of checking in with what's going on is a moment to get out of my brain and have more coherence with my body. So my latest one is just truly, let's take the word inspiration and use it as a tool by breathing in.
I love that, man. And I love the question. Am I safe?
Yeah.
Just that simple
Raj,
question.
It's been amazing. I thank you so much for the joy and the beauty and the value that you bring to me as your friend and to this audience. And just thank you so much.
I love you, brother. Thank you for having me here.